Hey, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Sarfo-Mensah. And if this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, I welcome you and I hope that you return for future episodes and new content. And if you are a returning listener or viewer of the podcast, I welcome you back and I hope that today's episode is one that you find informative, enlightening, and as always, insightful. So, before we get to our main event for today, just a reminder for those who are on YouTube, please make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can get future notifications on new episodes of both that Identity Talk for Educators Live podcast and our newest podcast, Radical Math Talk. We also accept any monetary donations for those who want to help us continue to build on this platform. If you're on Cash App, our handle is ID IDTALK4ED. If you're on Venmo, our handle is at KWAMESM. So that's at Kwame SM. And of course, if you are listening from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your audio, you can subscribe there as well so you can catch the new episodes when they come. And make sure you check out our website, identitytalkforeducators.com, where you can get information about our services, and also you can catch the episodes of this podcast there as well. Thank you kindly. Now, today is a special episode because truth be told, this is a brother who I've been wanting to get on this podcast for a minute. He's just been making some major moves with his Real Men Teach movement, and he's like a Renaissance man. I mean, he just does a little bit of everything. I mean, we're talking entrepreneur, professor, educator, internationally renowned. Like, this is somebody who just has his hands in all kinds of different spaces, and I'm just excited to finally have this space with him to just have a conversation about all of his work that he's doing and the work that he's going to be doing in the future. So without further ado, I want to bring on the good brother, Mr. Curtis Valentine, to the podcast to talk about Real Men Teach, to talk about his policy work and just all the dope things he's doing right now, which is a lot. So we're going to spend this next hour really getting it in. So let's bring him on. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Peace, man. How you doing, Kwame?
Man, I'm good, man. Like I said, it's great to have you on, and I'm just excited to get into this conversation for sure.
Glad to be here. This is truly an international conversation. You on the continent, me here on the East Coast, and like you said, man, I've always been a big fan of yours, following the work. I'm a fan of energy.
Yes.
Titles don't really mean a lot to me, all the pedigree, but it's clear, you and I moving in the same direction, energetically. And even our pre-conversation, man, you can just tell we're going to keep working together and we're just getting started.
Absolutely. And I mean, you have a lot of international ties yourself. It's crazy, what the 6 degrees of separation looks like between the two of us. But we'll talk more about that as we get deep into the conversation. But before we do so, I always like to start from the beginning with our guests. So, I know a little about your history, but I definitely would love to give you the space to just share a little bit more about yourself and what ultimately brought you into the education field.
Brother, if you had asked me this question 4 years ago, I would have given you a different answer. And that is because over the last 3 years, I've got to learn a lot about my own history and my ancestors, and particularly their connection to education. And so over the last 3 years, I learned that I am directly related to, the first African American to ever attend college in the U.S. Brother by the name of John Chavis in 1792 attended Princeton University. We are from the same town in Southern Virginia. My full name is Curtis Chavis Valentine. His name was John Chavis. And so if you want to go back to the 18th century, people with my background have been involved in education. You want to fast forward 100 years, but still, in the early 20th century, a cousin of mine, William Valentine, led a school in New Jersey called the Manual Training School from 1915 to 1953. That school was the only all-Black public boarding school in the North, where Black educators who were trained at both Ivy League school and historically Black colleges taught students on campus in a public school setting. And those students went on to become doctors, lawyers, engineers, but also folks who went into the military and entrepreneurs working with their hands. Fast forward a little further, 1926, my great-grandparents helped co-found the school called the Rosenwald School, the Carol Boyd Rosenwald School. Rosenwald schools are schools, one of 5,000 that were created post Reconstruction in the United States to educate African Americans, and those schools became pipelines into historically Black colleges. And so I'm a part of and a descendant of folks who've been involved in education in this country for the last 250 years. And I'm a part of that journey and that lineage of folks in this country who are trying to hold this country to account for what it said it stands for, and what it's supposed to stand for those who they purport to serve. And so I believe education is a fundamental right. I believe quality education is a fundamental right. And, Real Men Teach is just a part of a long history of Chavises and Valentines in this country who've been demanding public education. Real Men Teach is just a part of that. Fast forward a little further. I'm from Somerset, New Jersey. My father integrated the Rawway public school system. My grandmother was a member of the NAACP. And so I come from that stock of people who've been demanding the right to learn throughout history. I'm glad to carry that torch and glad to see where Real Men Teach takes it from here.
Yes, and let's also shout out the fact that your wife is also an educator. So it's all in the family, bro. All in the family.
Well, I tell people, so I don't give my full bio, but my wife is a high school principal. I'm on the Board of Education in Maryland where I live, and so I'm an official. I've been on the school board for 9 years. And so the Valentine household, you pull up at our house, it is where policy meets practice. And then I have 2 children who attend public schools. And so you imagine dinner time where we're having a conversation about testing. I'm on the policy side and I'm looking at, public school testing. My wife is on the practice side. She's saying, as an administrator, this is what I have to do in order to facilitate this. This is how we're going to use it. This is the process about using this information to help student achievement. And then I have my 2 children who have to sit for the test. And that information is being used to hopefully diagnose how the system can support them and ensure that they're on track. And so, it never turns off in my household. There are members of the school board and other places who can really come home and I think about education. It is in my face 24/7, 7 days a week. And that's important to me. I don't shy away from that. I have an advantage that others don't. And my success is in part because I have a feedback loop of a practitioner, of students in my home every day. And so I don't have to speculate about how educators would go about implementing this. I can ask my wife or one of her friends. And as well, Real Men Teach, as you know, has a number of Black and brown male educators in my school system who I can call on already as well to talk about how what we're putting into policy will actually look like in practice.
And we'll talk more about Real Men Teach a little later on, but I do want to touch on just your involvement with the school board, because I think that's an important point that we need to stress, given the current climate in our education world right now, particularly in the U.S. I'm sure you've heard what went down at I think it's what they call Moms for America, the
Okay,
organization.
I've, I've heard of them.
So
Yes.
former education secretary Betsy DeVos made a speech, and in her speech, she stated that the Department of Education should no longer exist, and that all power should go to the states and local school boards. So I'm paraphrasing. So I'm thinking to myself, well, when we think about voting has the biggest impact at the local level. And every 2 years, when these elections come up, we're always talking about how we can get more Black and brown folks to get to the polls to vote on the different issues, particularly when it comes to education. So I'm interested in getting your perspective as a school board member and just finding out and really pleading to our Black and brown parents and also community stakeholders, as to why it's important for us to be a part of the local school board wherever we are, given the rhetoric that's out there.
Well, I mean, and in general, and I'll get to these moms. I think in general it's important to get involved in policy wherever you live, for a myriad of reasons. You know, as you mentioned, I teach ed policy, and when I talk to my students on the first day of class about the importance of policy, of taking classes in public policy, getting a policy degree, I start off by saying everybody has an opinion about something. Everyone thinks that something should be done differently. It should be fixed. And whether the ice cream machine at McDonald's works, or whether schools should be closed on a snow day, or whether a detour should be put here versus here, or whether this should be a one-way street. People on social media out loud are, proclaiming their positions or ideas all day long. But there are only a handful of people who have decided and said, I want to know how to actually bring this idea to fruition. Not just talk about education, transportation, food security, crime, access to quality healthcare. Everyone is talking about it, but only a handful of people say, I'm actually going to go about the process of understanding how ideas become law. And that is a function of a public policy education. And so when it comes to this particular question around why you should get involved in the local education system, it's because education is in and throughout your entire life, no matter whether you have children in the system or not, or whether you're an educator or not. Education is at the foundation of where you live, the value of your home, the crime rate in your community, private sector investment in your community, transportation in your community, all the things that you talk about, caring about, at their very foundation is education. And so if you want to know where the levers are in order to change, again, your opinion into practice, into law, the school board, at least at a beginning point, is where you should start. And you could do that from the comfort of your own home. Every school board meeting that I've ever been a part of over the last 9 years has been televised live and recorded and put on YouTube. If you have a long weekend and a lot of time and a sincere interest in education, you can go on and watch hours and hours and hours of school boards. Who's coming to testify? Who are they talking to? What are they saying? What information are they using to make their argument? Who keeps coming back? What's getting voted on? Who votes on them? Why are they voting on these things? All that's happening in real time. The good brother Gil Scott Herring once said the revolution will not be televised. Now, he was being ironic, but at the same time, everything you say, you care about is right in front of your face. And if you have the time and energy to talk about it, just take a fragment of that and actually go about trying to understand how to make change. It's right in front of you, and education at the foundation of everything you say you care about.
And I would even add the importance of just being involved with your kids' school. Maybe you're not able to go to the local school board meetings, but if you're able to just be in tune with what's going on at your kid's school, there's school site council committees, you have parent committees in most schools, and a lot of the policies and the procedures that are implemented usually starts in those meetings. But what tends to happen historically is the fact that there's a low participation. And because of low participation, a lot of the policies and even like the rules that you find in the handbooks and the code of conduct that are enforced year after year, they keep getting enforced because guess what? There's really no opposition to it. But then every year you hear same parents complain about, oh, why my kids gotta wear this uniform? How come we gotta pay this much money to buy a uniform or for supplies? These are things that you can negotiate. These are things that you can bring up at those kind of meetings. But the problem is for parents who look like you and I, they may be working around that time. They may not be able to go to those meetings. So, and it's not every school, but it's a good number of schools. And if you're at the schools that I know I've taught in, where parents just aren't available because they might be working a second or a third job, or they got to stay home, take care of the child, or they don't have any means for transportation, it's not as easy as, some people make it out to be. So just want to put that out.
It's a two-way street, and it's a partnership.
Yeah. For sure.
And you have to have a school leader who, one, and this is first and foremost, loves the children in their school. And when I say love, it's not like I love teaching or I love education. Like, you got to look in those babies' faces every day and be, you know what? I want you to be everything you want to be in life. And I'm going to take every bullet that fired at you, and this is sort of literally and figuratively in this country, unfortunately.
Yes.
Because we know that people are coming to take things from certain students who look like us, who are trying to frame and sort of caricature our children in a certain way. And school leaders, again, my wife is a school leader. When she walks out of this room, I know that she cares that much about her babies. My wife was a vice principal of a high school 6 years ago. And the senior class she was so connected to, Kwame, there's a group of students from her class, there are 20 of them, who come to my house 4 times a year and eat and to sit down and have a conversation. They're 23, 24 years old right now.
Wow.
They're coming over and they didn't graduate college. They got jobs now. Some in grad school, getting doctoral degrees. Now, my wife, she met them when they were freshmen in high school, and they telling stories about, what happened. But that's when I'm not doing this because you pay me, or you own a business. Some customers you serve because they got the money. Other customers you serve because you just like, please come in. I like talking to you. I like seeing you. You brighten up my day.
Yes.
When it comes to education, you have to find, even when students who, it's hard for you to connect with, you have to dig deep inside and also try to find ways to build trust with those students so that they'll trust you to sort of lower their guard down a little bit, to talk a little about, what they're going through. The beauty of education is we were all 15 at some point in time. Like, teachers we didn't skip 15. We didn't skip 16. So I meet young people. So I was 15 years old before. I don't look it, but I was 15. And I was 16. And I was 17. So everything you're going through, I'm not going through everything you're going through, but I was going through a lot at that age. And I knew who I spoke to and who I connected with and why I didn't, and what I needed to hear from certain people for me to connect with them, or what did I need to see from certain people. And so for the most part, man, I don't want to belabor this issue, but when you have that school leader who cares about the babies, they will partner with the parent to say, we're in this together. Like, it's not like I'm solely responsible for your child being successful or you're solely responsible for your child being successful. We are coming to this table, parents, teachers, administrators, community partners, your church, your fraternity, whoever you want to call it, and we're all surrounding the kid. Like, we're like you can't get outside of this bubble if you want. And they're trying to run out. And we kind of got our arms locked. And they're trying to run out to other things that we know we've tried. Like I said, Kwame, I was 15, you were 14. I know what's on the outside. I know what's over there. Right. Tried it, got it. And said, got the t-shirt. I've been over there. You don't need none of that. You don't need none of that. Right here's what you need to be right here. But unfortunately, what happens a lot of time is that link is broken. That community, school leader, principal, parent link. And so the link opens up and the kid runs out of the circle of support, that bubble, into arms of people who don't love them. And then and they come back, and it's a back and forth. But you need to have that locked in. And so you think about if I would sit down and ask you your story and you dig deep into my story, I will tell you, in my community where I grew up in Jersey, I couldn't get out of the circle. I tried my best. And the brothers, they was they wouldn't let me out. But my friends got out. And I could see them from inside. I could see them outside of the circle. And we talking 30 years later, we're in very, very different places in life. Because of something happened when they were 13, 14 years old. Wow, man, like your whole life has changed because something you did when you were 13, 14. Like, bro, that's a lot of pressure. But so, yeah, if we can get that partnership and that locked in, bro, powerful.
So, man, let me ask you this, because I know your wife is a principal, and we know what's transpired over the past couple years with COVID, how it's caused many teachers to resign or leave the profession altogether. So I don't know if your wife's experiencing this, but I'm wondering, for those school leaders or even the schools that are experiencing this teacher shortage crisis, how can an organization like yours, Real Men Teach, help to fill the gaps in those schools where they may not have a full staff of teachers? They may be missing some support staff members, because I feel like with what's happening, we're getting back to the importance of community. Like, educators aren't just in the classrooms, they are everywhere in our community, and we need to reinforce that. And I feel like Real Men Teach reiterates that importance of the educator transcending the brick and mortar of the classroom space. So as you answer that, I'd love for you to just start talking about, Real Men Teach and how that all started, because I think it's just powerful.
Let me say this, and I was talking to someone earlier about sort of the impact of Real Men Teach. And Real Men Teach has a fourfold impact. It's a four-legged stool. And a lot of this ties into the circle I talked about, this circle of linked arms of men and women who will not let children fail.
Yes.
And so when it comes to Real Men Teach, in this idea of really elevating the profession, the elevator pitch for Real Men Teach, it changes. I'm getting better as the more I talk about it, and I'm trying to bumper sticker this thing. We are trying to elevate the teaching profession to where it was 50, 60 years ago. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers up here. If you are a West African immigrant, first generation child, when you come to America, your parents says doctor, lawyer, engineer, dentist. How many of us saying teacher? They ain't saying teacher. You're gonna be teacher. We're gonna be teach what? Professor maybe, but it's an international sort of lack of respect for just rank and file teachers. What we try to do in a very long, drawn out, persistent consistent effort of showing the Curtis Valentines, the Kwames of the world, and saying, no, these men deserve to be on magazine covers. They deserve to be on billboards. They deserve to be on par with athletes, with millionaires, with rappers, with engineers, with doctors, with lawyers. Because when it comes to locking arms and holding hands also requires a level of trust and respect. Like, if I don't respect you as a teacher, if I think, if I don't respect you, then why would I trust you to give my child what they need? If I don't respect you or your expertise or your position or your experience, then we're not gonna lock arms. Like, it's gonna be a real flimsy, handshake. And so what we do is elevate the profession, and that is for the community. So the community benefits because we're saying teaching is on par with all the other selective and highly competitive professions. That's one. The other benefit is to the educator that we celebrate. So when we celebrate that young man on that day and say, the world introducing for the first time to the world, we have the great Kwame Sarfo-Mensah. And I want to get up out of your seat, show this brother some love. And they're getting up out of their seat, and they're showing love through likes and retweets, and you can see the inboxes I get, Kwame. Curtis, bro, you have no idea what that meant to me, bro. I needed that, bro. Man, listen, people think it's a small thing, bro, but affirmation is my love language. I needed that, bro. I got more energy in me now. I know why I'm doing this. That's for the individual. That's the individual. That's the community. The school, and this is the third part that gets to your point, kind of answers your question more directly. When people say, hold up, you telling me Curtis and Kwame teach at the same school? Hold on. Where's the school at? I'm trying to find these brothers. If they teach there, I at least want to go and see whether this could be a spot for me. Because if these two brothers teach there, then I may be able to find a home and grow there. And so now we're showcasing schools through the individual power of those in the building. What we're doing now when it comes to recruiting, which I think is lazy, is saying we want a black male educator, like a stock photo person. No name.
Yeah, like a token, basically.
No name, no background. And I tell people, do you want a black male educator or do you want Kwame Sarfo-Mensah? The difference. Because, or you want Curtis, I'm a different black male educator than the one you think you may get. I'm not a security guard. Miss it. My man, Kwame ain't no security guard. So do you want a black male educator or do you want Kwame? It's a difference. And so we ain't checking boxes. And so that's the power of when we now, and this is sort of the next phase of Real Men Teach. I don't want to get too far ahead. This is the school saying we have some really amazing male educators in our building that no one knows about. And we're trying to bring people in, and it's going to a college fair and maybe showing a couple pamphlets. It's just not really giving you a full picture of what we got going on here. And so there's some photos floating around. This one school sent me a photo. They had 45 brothers in the picture. I said, oh, teach at your school? I said, who knows that? Would I know that if I walked into the school? And you telling me that if I had to and so here's the other part. This is my prediction, Kwame. You gonna put that school up against a school that ain't got no brothers in it, and think you're gonna win? Attract me to come to your school where I'm gonna be the only brother, and I got 25 Kwames with me. When I walk in the door, the first time I walk in, hey, peace, brother. Good to see you, man. Hey, before you leave, the brothers is having a down in room 205. We down there having a meditation, and then we're gonna go out and and watch the football game. And then on Sundays, we do a father-son thing. Hold up. What'd you say? We're going to do meditate. Do we watch sports? Do we going to do a father-son thing on the weekend? Oh, bro, you done messed up. I'm home. I ain't going nowhere. And so you're going to see a concentration. And it's going to be like schools that are sort of like, it's going to be like, okay, this school, they all going to start. It's going to be a great migration. And brother said, I ain't got to be the only one no more. So community, the individual, the school, and last but not least, the most important, I think, is the student.
Come on.
The people who benefit most from them and teach are not the men. And this is sort of like, Kurt, I don't get it, bro. You lost me. When a student sees you, when a student sees me, and they say, I've never had a teacher who had hair like you. Now, I'm telling myself, but when I taught, my hair looked like yours. I'm just saying. I had dreadlocks on my back. I had locks. Yeah. So I walked in, and I remember the one student. Name was Delonte. Delonte sat in the front row. Delonte had locks. And Delonte was, he and I all day long, back and forth, talking and connecting. And I'm like, I wonder has he had other educators who had locks? And I wore mine down. I didn't do ponytail. I wore mine like sort of how you have yours in the picture. And I'm moving, I'm flowing with it.
Yeah.
But also when I come in, based on who I am, I'm giving those students permission to be who they are.
Yep.
If I'm a Trekkie, if I'm a Star Wars guy, if I'm caught like a Childish Gambino type cat, all that, man. Like, I went to Morehouse. There's 3,000 brothers there. You can't tell me, hey, Kurt, man, all y'all the same at Morehouse. Oh, no, you're not. Come to Morehouse and stay 3 hours at Morehouse. Go to the cafeteria and eat lunch.
Mm-hmm.
You will see brothers. You will see brothers with different accents, different hairstyles, different backgrounds, different conversations, different political beliefs, different sexual orientation, all those different things. Because our diversity gives others permission to let their light shine. And so when students are trying to look for a reflection and they're saying, you know what, I struggled with this thing and I kept it to myself until I finished high school and college, I'm saying, well, I bet you didn't have anyone in that space who gave you a passport to be able to be very upfront and to say, you know what, I'm standing guard for this young man or this young woman who wants to walk in their truth because I have a similar truth. And I had to wait till I finished college to have my truth. And I'm gonna make sure they don't have to do that. And if you have a problem with that, look at me at my age and understand that there's nothing to fear. And so that's to me at its foundation. Us being our authentic selves gives our students permission to be their authentic selves.
All that is so true. And earlier in what you're sharing, you talk about affirmation. Affirmation is so key when we talk about the importance of retaining our Black male educators. So I know that Real Men Teach is very much a multi-generational, multicultural, even a multi-racial collective. But we know that even today, as we speak, we are still struggling to retain brothers in this profession. And I want to shout out good brother Sharif El-Mekki, who's just doing fantastic work with the Center for Black Educator Development. So shout out to Sharif for really leading the way in that because it's a much needed resource in this current time. So when I think about affirmation, I wonder, well, how can we affirm our brothers enough to get them to want to stay in this profession, which asks a lot of us, right? Like, there are a lot of asks when it comes to teaching, a lot of them. You know this, being a professor, your wife knows this, being a principal, it is not for the faint of heart. So in thinking about this, I want you to just think about what's happening now, what's happened historically, and just give me your perspective on the current state of Black male educators in the profession right now. Like, where are we right now? How come we're not able to retain enough brothers to stay? Is it a recruitment issue? Like, what's going on?
Well, let me say this, and I mean, I'm a policymaker. In my day job, I run a think tank in Washington, so I'm looking at the research, and I'm looking at it, and I'm not trying to be emotional about it. I'm just trying to say, what is the data telling me? The data is telling me that one, teaching is not unique in this time, that people are leaving, and it's hard to fill jobs. It's happening in nursing. It's happening in hospitality. It's happening in higher education. I mean, it's happening everywhere. And there's a tendency to say, I'll give the impression that it's only happening in teaching, and there's something wrong with education, and this is why it's happening. But at the same time, no one's saying not something wrong with the healthcare system or with hospitality or tourism. And so I'm just very careful. And again, I'm maybe an outlier here. I'm careful with sort of wrapping in the shortage with just the profession itself, because that makes it very unattractive, Kwame. Like, why would I want to join a profession that everyone is leaving? Why would I want to be a part of a whole field that you only have 2% of them are brothers? And so I'm very careful about leading with that. I also understand, again, Black men, Black people, and people in general leave teaching every year, regardless of COVID or burnout. They leave. I left. I taught middles. I don't teach 8th grade language arts no more. Had nothing to do with the money. Had nothing to do with burnout. I had other interests, and in particular, African development. I wanted to get more involved in seeing the world as a young man, and I had really this interest in Africa. And someone said, "Kurt, I'm going to give you a full-time job to travel back and forth to the continent." Now, me leaving that school, there were some who would say, "There's something wrong with that school. Why couldn't it keep Curtis? Something wrong with that system. Why couldn't they keep Curtis?" I said, "Well, yeah, there's nothing y'all could have did unless y'all opened a school in Sierra Leone and let me teach there." And so I think I'm just very careful about just sort of the microwave. People are leaving. The system's broken. The broken system. Now come work at this broken system. That don't even sound right. The alternative is you frame it the way people who are staying, because that's the thing I think. Who's staying and why are they staying? How about let's elevate them. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about why people are like, I choose to stay and why. I choose to stay for this, and let's put that out there. Let's talk about how people who leave their profession to leave, they leave teaching, they're leaving for money sometimes, but they're leaving because they have other interests. Now, I'm of the belief that there could be an intersection, compromise. Interview a young man. Hey, so why are you leaving? Well, I want to make films. I studied film in college. Came out. I couldn't find a job in film, or I really like students, so I want to become a school teacher. But now I want to go into film. There's nothing you all can really do. Is there a school or a program or some way to intersect cinematography and K-12 education? Absolutely. There are schools that are specializing in different career pathways, different ways that are training young people to be proficient in certain skills, that if you could marry the educator with this burning desire they have to do that thing and put it in that school, you could make magic. And so if it's sports, if it's tourism, if it's cinematography, public speaking, all those things. And this gets into another conversation around sort of school models, school types, school choice. That, and so this idea of, back to Curtis. If someone said, Curtis, we're opening up a school, charter, contract school, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to be pulling in students from Africa who are first generation, and we're going to be teaching different languages. And then we got a grant to go back to the continent twice a year and spend entire summers there. And we're going to support those young people to open up their own schools and start community projects. I would still be teaching right now. I would still be, you're saying I can work with my young people, and I could really feel this need to really want to connect with the continent. Okay. But what we do in education oftentimes, it's a binary choice, one or the other. And then when I choose this other thing, like you're saying, oh, so you don't love this thing. I didn't say I didn't love this thing. But you're telling me this thing is, if I have to make a choice at this time in my life, I'm choosing this thing. And nothing, it doesn't really do with you. Like, it's the whole thing. It's not you, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing that, again, I'm very careful, because people, they love all these, people make a lot of money. And you started off early talking about donations to your group. That people make a lot of money, a lot of grants, and they spend every day of their life like really trying to beat down systems. And it's you get a lot of likes and people like that. And I say, well, what's left after all the beating? You think my child is going to trust going to that school building after you said it is the worst school, it's a dropout factory, children. Do you know children are going in there every day? At least, do you know that people got to work there? Now, you can say, Curtis, keeping quiet won't fix it. I'm not saying don't fix it. I'm not saying work your butt off every day to fix the school. But the throwing of the bombs every day, how is that fixing it? That's my question. How is what you're saying fixing it? And how is that landing on the people who are literally holding up the building with both hands, lest it collapse on them? And again, I get a lot of flack, Curtis. You not being hard on people enough. Hard on the people who are already working, the people who you saying are lazy. They are working as hard as they know how to. Now, in the system, we do a better job of training them up, giving them training. And if for some reason they're not cut out, then finding other work for them. But to sit there and to, like, on my third shift, while my feet are hurting, you come and you wanna come out here with your sign and picket my establishment, all while your child comes in here to eat every day because I'm the only one serving food. Oh wow, like that's not gonna work. Versus, hey, what are your solutions? And not just talk about it. Are you gonna come and help me do it? Because that's the thing. Also, of all my bio stuff, I'm actually on the ground in schools, working, mentoring. If you see posts, I got a young brother I mentor. Just started his first day as a school teacher in New York City. He is, if you want to ask me my greatest accomplishment, it may be him becoming a school teacher. I got another guy I mentor, and this is up your alley. First generation American, just told me, Kwame, a week ago, Uncle Kurt, I just got accepted into the Peace Corps.
Wow. Get out of here.
His brother had never heard of Peace Corps before I met him.
Wow, look at that.
And you telling me, so don't tell me that you can't not like this system and still things and still help people and work both individually. So I'm working with individual students, like one-on-one. I got my phone, my text message goes off all night long. I'm working with systems, but I'm not people's cup of tea because I'm not out there like, just dissing everything. It's just not me. And I don't even rock like that. That's not even my person. If you ever see me doing that, just know I'm putting on. That ain't Kurt, bro. There you go. What do you sound like you, bro? Like, what are you talking about? Like, bro, that energy is way off. I have teachers and principals calling me, hey, Kurt, man, I know it's broken. I know we got to fix it, bro. but that really not helping nothing. I mean, that's really not helping us. You calling us a broken system and saying I got to recruit teachers. I can't recruit nothing when you talking like that, bro. Like, who want to work here when you saying it's the worst school in the district? And I'm saying, okay, can we find out something good going on? Can we find something that's working in the school, in that school? Can we find a debate team that went from 9th place last year to 3rd place last year, this year? Can we talk about the debate team for like, bro, I had a guy reach out to me and come at me because I posted something about my school system doing well. Hey, Curtis, but the system, but I'm hearing y'all this on the list, bro. But in this thing, we're doing well. Like, should I not? Am I better off not posting that at all?
Yeah.
Should I keep that to myself? Bro, like when you're in it, I said my wife is a school teacher. My kids go to school there. My kids, hey dad, this guy came to you and said our school system sucks. Is that my school system? Yeah. Is that the one that mommy works in? Yeah, that's the one. And does mommy suck? I don't think so. You don't think so, but maybe he thinks so. Does he care what I think about mommy? Clearly he doesn't. He wouldn't have said it in front of you.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject, man. It's touchy. So basically, in all of what you said, let's focus on shifting the narrative to just the positive things that are happening. Because guess what? There are diamonds in the rough, right? There are some great things going on in spite of the circumstances we find ourselves in with COVID and all the other forces that need not be named, because guess what? The media has already been talking about it for the past couple of years. Everybody knows what those forces are, but there's still some positive things going on. But man, you were speaking to my soul, brother, because I mean, for those who know and have been following this podcast, they know that I have not been in a classroom for 3 years. It's been 3 years since I've been in the classroom because I've been abroad. I was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia for 3 years. And then as recently as May, I've been here in Freetown, Sierra Leone, supporting my wife, being with my family. And, I've had to do some pivoting. So even though I'm not in a classroom, I've had to find different ways to have impact, because when COVID started to hit, I'm not going to lie to you, I felt guilty, because it's like, yo, I'm not in the trenches like I used to. Like, I'm not in there on the grind. I'm not lesson planning. I'm not grading. I don't have to worry about the remote learning and the asynchronous versus synchronous learning. I don't have to worry about, having students evacuate from a school once they find a case of COVID. Like, those are things that I didn't have to experience because I wasn't in that space at that time. So I felt for my colleagues who are still in the trenches. And a part of me always felt like, man, I got to do more. What can I do in my current position outside of the school space to still have a positive impact on my colleagues, students, and everybody? So that's really a major reason why this podcast started. It's a major reason why I started to blog. It's a major reason why I started to write books. Like, all the things that people see on social media was born out of the fact that, man, I can't be in a classroom, so let me impact what's going on in a different way that's going to amplify the voices that are still in the trenches. And I could tell you, man, it's been one of the greatest decisions I've made. But are there still times where I want to do more? There's always going to be times where I want to do more. And yeah, it's still a very gray space I'm in, being abroad. But I think while being abroad, particularly here on the continent of Africa, being closer to where my family is in Ghana, really being in this space, it's allowed me to have a much broader perspective on what education looks like in developing countries that aren't nearly as developed as the Western countries, whether it's the United States, whether we're talking the UK and others. So it's really broadened my perspective. And even for you, someone who has spent time abroad, serving Peace Corps and doing all the things you've done internationally, I know that's done a lot to broaden your own perspective about being an educator. So I want to definitely give you an opportunity to share how the Peace Corps for you really helped to shape you. And even before you even talk about that, like, how did you even catch the bug to become a Peace Corps member?
Well, the Peace Corps, when I talk to young people, particularly college students, my own students at Maryland College Park or young men I mentor from Morehouse or anywhere else, when they ask for my advice about what to do after college, my answer has been the same nearly 100% of the time. It is, in a sentence, leave this country. Leave. Now, if the response is how, I don't know how, my response is almost always the Peace Corps. And they'll say, so why leave this country? Why is it so important? And I say, well, so you'll never see this country for what it is until you leave and come back. And see it for what it is, see it for its contradictions, see it for its beauty, see it for its pain. And more importantly, just for you to unplug from the daily struggles of being, in most cases, a Black man or a young person in this country. And until you leave, you really don't realize what you're holding up. For anybody who's traveled to the continent, and when you land and your phone don't work, and you ain't got the good SIM card, or when you just land and you're taking all your senses, smell, touch, hearing, everything is on fire. Because you ain't smelled things like that. You ain't heard things. You ain't seen things. You ain't felt things. All the different things that you get will make you come alive in a lot of ways. And so with me, the Peace Corps was the one time where I was like, okay, and I asked myself, who is Curtis Valentine? Outside of all the other things that people said I should be. You're a Morehouse man, so. You're light-skinned, so. You're from here, so. Your mom was this, so. I mean, all the different things that we all sort of tie ourselves into because we're hearing it from the time we come home from the hospital. And then I said, well, who am I? And my whole life has changed because I had one career path and I end up, switching. And so that really is, the Peace Corps impact for me is connection to this work. I could say is that, living in a village. So I lived in a village in South Africa, like a lot of volunteers, no electricity, no running water. And so I did a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of journaling, a lot of meditation, but also just sort of like looking at community at its found. How are communities created at their foundation? Interdependence, connection, sacrifice, love, all those things that I could see up close, protection. But more importantly, what is the function of men in this community? And this is a community that was, had no television, so they weren't really basing it off of something they saw. This is going back hundreds of years of just sort of off the beaten path community, folks in, we call them rendezvous in South Africa, but sort of grass huts, people cooking by fire, washing their clothes by hand, which is what I also did. So that's really foundational. What does it mean literally to be a humanitarian? And so it breaks you down, and then it built me back up again to say, all right, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to see the world. This is the image I want to create. And I really call the name of my host father, Christopher Mukwebo, his brother, Robert Mukwebo, who brought me over there. He was a school, they both were school principals, both brothers. And just as Black men, man, in this community, I mean, like hearing them talk about, economics, safety, tradition, love, marriage, death. And I'm like, wow, like this is why this community is still here. The role of women. And my host mother was a very strong woman, very, very proud, very well, well-spoken and powerful. How did she connect with the men in the community in a polygamous sort of patriarchal tradition in this community? And so that is Real Men Teach is a function of all the men in my life from the time I came home from the hospital in Jersey to Morehouse to South Africa to DC, and each of those men are built a brick saying on the wall and all this foundation that we built that says, if you have men at the center and they're standing guard, and they're making decisions rooted in the future of the babies, then anything is possible. And at the same time, the opposite, which is men disconnected, not standing together, not making decisions in the best interest of the babies, has led to, obviously, in this country, on the continent, around the world, to a lot of destruction. And so, Real Men Teach, at its foundation, would not be here if I hadn't joined the Peace Corps.
Wow. And you are a real one for even doing that. Just being a Black man in Peace Corps, which is a whole nother topic for another day.
I was the only one. I was the only one in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, for a period of time, I was the only Black male in the country.
Right. And now we have a brother who is the country director in South Africa. Shout out to Mr. James Ham, family friend of ours.
I met Brother Ham, and he talks about Real Men Teach, how we can work together. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about Peace Corps.
Yes.
And I would love to work with them and how to recruit, particularly brothers, to go and I was in the education program in Peace Corps. I was an education volunteer to get brothers into education volunteer work. My mentee, who just got into the Peace Corps, is going to be an education volunteer, and so I'm just so proud.
Where's your mentee serving? What country?
Well, I believe he was offered, and I want to say it's in Latin America. I don't remember the country, but I believe it's in Central America. So I can find out. But he's a Spanish speaker, and so I think that was almost. And he's a Spanish speaker, but also an HBCU alum, Bowie State alum, who I met in a community college. And again, when you go into community college, you're having to do a lot of sort of ingraining in young people the power and possibility in a place where people don't believe is possible. And so I'm saying, have you ever heard of the Peace Corps? You mean the Peace Corps where only a handful of people are Latino like me, first generation? I didn't go to a elite private white school. I went to an HBCU, and you're saying that I could potentially become part of this community? And I'm saying, yes. Like, I don't have yes, in a word. And I'm saying, I got you. Like, you want it or not? Like, we're going to ride out. And this is 5 years ago I met him. And so these are things that, changed my life, and I want them to help change others.
Man. But listen, man, Curtis, I don't know if you realize this, but man, you a legend in these Peace Corps streets, brother. You a legend, bro. It's funny. It was like maybe a few years back. I was still in Ethiopia. My wife was like, you should bring Curtis on to talk on this podcast. This was almost 3 years ago. She had mentioned your name. He's like, yeah, you heard of Curtis Valentine? He did ICAP. So this is around a time when she was about to do ICAP. So, she's gone through the program ever since, and it has done wonders for her in terms of just her leadership development, the connections she's been able to make. And, whenever I think about that, I always connect it back to when she mentioned your name and pretty much what you've been able to do, since being a part of that and just what you were able to do in Peace Corps. So, just hearing her and just seeing her journey up until this point, I could see the impact that Peace Corps has had for y'all. And man, it's just powerful. So, man, thank you for sharing that. But we at the hour, exactly at the hour. So we definitely want to close things out with our lightning round. So we got a few questions to wrap things up so that people can get to know you a
Okay.
little bit better. First question I always like to ask is how you feeling and what are you doing for self-care? Because you're doing a lot right now, brother.
Oh wow, I appreciate that. I'm doing very well, man. I think I'm pouring myself, and I don't know if it's self care or not, but I'm really pouring myself into my children in a way I had not done in a long time, being on a school board, and I like watching them, and just sort of like, and they're 14 and 12 now, and for me, I need to transition more into them. Um, Something else I picked up more personally, I don't know if you can see it right now, but I was over this shoulder. I started doing
Okay.
puzzles. So I started doing, yeah, over there, something like my finger.
Yeah, I see the puzzle. I see
Yeah, so I'm
that.
doing
Looks like it's
puzzles.
done.
Good brother, what's the brother's name? So a good brother who does art. And so I went to a black bookstore not far from me, and bought a puzzle. So I'm starting to do puzzles. My mom does puzzles. It's a sort of way to concentrate my mind, to unplug, um, and it help with memory. And so at the same time, I've changed my diet. I'm sort of gone to this pescatarian vegan, so I'm doing fish sometimes, but mostly plant based and no dairy. And I exercise, and so really changing my health patterns, getting into puzzles. Those are things that I'm really doing for self care.
Oh, that's dope, man. That's dope. But my son loves puzzles. He gets through those 100-piece puzzles within 24, 48 hours. It's just amazing to see him work methodically through those. So yeah, puzzles are definitely great. Now, I understand you're a Back to the Future fan. So, I've been doing my research, you know what I'm saying?
Clearly,
So this question
clearly.
is dedicated to that. If you could go into a time machine and go back to any period in time or an historical event, what would that be for you?
Wow. And so interesting. I'm gonna give you an answer you may not expect.
Okay.
I would go back in time, and I would meet Jeff Bezos, and I would say, "Hey, we're gonna be best friends, and we're gonna work this out together." And I say that because with a lot of things that we talk about, they require resources. And
Yeah.
I don't like, again, I don't want to sugarcoat all this. If we could just sort of, if you have a good heart and you love people, everything would be cool. If I can go back in time and ensure that me, my family, everyone I care about, and the issues I care about are resourced, then that's what I would do. Now I think that's, to me, what our ancestors wanted from us, for us not to sort of have to be, hampered by financial insecurity or the inability to get our dreams into the world because we couldn't fund them. And so, to me, like, finding that Bezos or Zuckerberg or whoever that person is, and ensuring that I have the resources now to get the things that I want out into the world, that was I would use my DeLorean with the flux capacitor and all those things to get to ensure financial security for things I care about and people I love.
Cool. And if you could invite three influential figures, dead or alive, to dinner, who would they be?
Wow. Well, it's funny. So I mentioned three people at the outset. I would bring, John Chavis, William Valentine, and Beverly Valentine, my great grandfather,
Oh,
and two. And so the four of us sit down and talk about, education. And these guys, they're going back 200 years. Um, and ask them about, so what's your vision for 2022 for people who look like you? For me, these are folks who did so much more with so much less. And so I would love to sit down with them and to see what I could learn. I hope they will be able to. I want them to see a picture of what the future looks like, so they can get their roses. I'm sure they had no idea how their dreams would impact the world, but in the lightning round response, I would want William Valentine, John Chavis, and Beverly Valentine to join me.
Cool, that's what's up. Keep it a family affair, man. Mr. Curtis Valentine, Mr. International Man, Mr. Humanitarian, Professor, Entrepreneur, just all things, man. I appreciate you for coming on. This has been a dope conversation. And of course, I can't let you go without letting people know how they can connect with you on social media, but also the Real Men Teach movement. So let people know how they can hit you up, man.
One-stop shop. If you go to realmenteach.com, you can click on there to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. LinkedIn, as those who follow us know, we're fired up every day. Same thing on Twitter and Instagram. All Real Men Teach. So Real Men Teach on LinkedIn, Real Men Teach on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and then also on Twitter is Real Men Teach #2. I think if you go to our website, we have scholarships from HBCUs for people who are trying to become educators. We have jobs from schools that we're partnering with. We have curriculum. And we have opportunities for you to donate and purchase apparel and nominate somebody to be profiled by us. And so realmenteach.com, got my brother right there. And you show love early. Man, you were showing love super early. Yeah. And I appreciate that. And people still say you got one of the best pictures. And so there are people who are kind of, nice. Photographers. I'm like, okay, so you like the cinematography of it. Oh, okay, that's cool. Lighting, cool. Swag, style, all those things. Yeah, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and then our website. Support us, share us, like us, purchase from us. Keep this movement going.
Yes, sir. And it's growing by the day, man. It's amazing how it's grown over the past couple of years. When I bought this shirt, that was like 2 years ago, and you were just getting started with Real Men Teach. This was like the infant stages. And to see how it's evolved since then, it's been a beautiful thing. So, yeah, congratulations on all the work. And for everybody on the Real Men Teach team, man, y'all keep on pushing, man. We're going to continue to amplify this movement.
I appreciate you, man. Same thing, Identity Talk. I keep, you keep putting out that good work. I'm going to keep sharing it. And I'm just glad to get on the ground floor because I know you, I know you on the rise. And so I appreciate you asking me to come on. I'm looking forward to all the great things that are going to happen with you and your family and the work that you're doing.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate that. But we're going to definitely connect soon. So, man, wish you a good rest of the day. All my love to your family. And, yeah, we're going to connect, man.
All right. Well, all the best to you. And you all be safe out there and look forward to connecting you when you get back to the States.
All right, man. Appreciate that. Peace. All right, people, we're about to end another episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live. And as always, I wish you all good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, everybody.